course.
No, we
Right.
couldn't hear you, sorry, Chair.
Michelle Jones
Michelle
and Kath
Jones.
Phelan.
Yes, Chair.
Got them?
Yes,
Any
Chair.
others? No? So we move then quickly on to item number 3.
Chair, was there anything for item 2? Because I couldn't hear. Declarations of interest.
Declaration of interest.
No. Okay, thank you.
On to item 3, anti-bullying. That's then over to you, Sue. And I assume then that Sarah is going to take us through the report. Am I right?
Yes, Councillor Jones. Sarah will take us through the anti-bullying, and because it was sort of well-being as well, we thought it would be useful for members to actually hear from Neil and from Kaylee as to some aspects of how they manage the well-being, you know, within the current climate and how they move. So two short presentations from Kaylee and Neil. But do you want to go through the report first, or would you like the presentations from the schools first?
Whichever you think would be the best, Sue.
I'm going to hand over to, I'm going to pass the buck, then you pass the buck to me and I'll pass the buck to Sarah. Sarah, do you think the presentations first?
I don't mind. Either way, I'm quite happy to set the scene with the report.
Do you want to set the scene with the report and then
Yes.
we go into presentations, then members can ask questions after?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yes, good afternoon everybody, good to see you all. You will remember that I wrote a report during the early part of the academic year advising you of our anti-bullying guidance that had been updated in line with the Welsh Government guidance that was put together. This report briefly touches upon that guidance, but actually is far more reaching insofar as it talks about other aspects of wellbeing, of which anti-bullying is one part. The new curriculum has wellbeing at the centre of its work to enable learners to feel safe and ready to learn, to ensure that they are healthy, confident, ethical and ambitious individuals. I'm sure you'll all understand that children need to learn that bullying is unacceptable, and this teaching of bullying comes from not just schools, but obviously comes from the community as well. However, education providers have a key role in ensuring that there is some form of policy and guidance around addressing bullying within the curriculum. I'm sure I don't need to point out the damaging effects that bullying may have on individuals and the long-term impact that will have and the detrimental effects that it'll cause somebody. We do a lot of work around addressing bullying on various fronts. So with regards to where we are, guidance is sent to school on a regular basis around different aspects of training and documents and research that schools can access around anti-bullying. We are currently a part of anti-bullying training that is being delivered by Welsh Government. The training was put on hold but is continuing this calendar year. That'll include training for school staff but also workshops for young people in schools. We regularly take part in the Anti-Bullying Week. I'm sure some of you will be aware we hold a student conference, and despite the fact that we are currently working under strict social guidance restrictions at the moment, we did have an anti-bullying conference, or a student conference I should say, during Anti-Bullying Week during November of last year. There were 96 pupils that attended from our primary schools and accessed over 10 workshops. Topics covered things around resilience, staying healthy physically and mentally, hate crime, bullying, and subjects along the lines of well-being in general. A wellbeing curriculum was put together to support schools in their reopening in September. That was put together with colleagues from Central South Consortium, educational psychologists, local authority staff, and of course schools. We have also put together an online wellbeing toolkit that is accessible for schools on the Hub platform that has all kinds of documents to support pupil wellbeing, staff wellbeing and the curriculum to ensure that schools have got access to the most up-to-date documentation available. A task and finish group has been established to update the wellbeing handbook. This includes schools to ensure that, again, we've got up-to-date guidance available for everybody. I'm sure you'll all be very familiar with the RAS, that's the Raising Standards and Raising Aspiration strategy. The document focuses on emotional, mental and physical well-being of pupils and staff and underlines that this is a prerequisite to improve outcomes. Wellcom has been rolled out across all of our primary schools. This is a tool that can be used to improve literacy. Poor literacy can often result in frustration and poor behaviour, which will then impact upon behaviour. And it is deemed that obviously levels of literacy will, once improved, will hopefully improve that behaviour. We are also working with a group of schools in the Aberfan area to look at wellbeing. The project has got 6 or 7 workshops that are being carried out to use enterprise technology to allowing young people to play and create and work together to provide them with new learning opportunities. As we are now working in a very different way, we have ensured that schools have got all the safeguarding practices and policies in place, and that we've been following the Welsh Government guidance on blended learning to ensure that everything around safeguarding and behaviour continues as normal as things can be at the moment. The updated guidance reflects a change to allow schools to produce to work with the most appropriate live stream and video conferencing for their setting. It ensures that safeguarding practices and procedures continue, and that safeguarding is continued to be of paramount importance. Whether learners are learning online at home or in the classroom, safeguarding and welfare of pupils is paramount and takes preference over any other consideration. It ensures that the schools continue to follow their safeguarding procedures and report any concerns to their designated senior person, and that all normal standards of behaviour apply in the online classroom as they would in the real classroom. Good staff wellbeing is essential to cultivating a mentally healthy school, and as a result of that, we have done a lot of work to ensure that staff wellbeing again is at the centre and focus of all the work that we do. Prior to COVID-19, we produced a staff charter in conjunction with Ed Support and head teachers to ensure that expectations of all was clearly identified and that we support our teaching staff as best as we can. We've recently commissioned Inspire You to work with schools in the Pen y Dre cluster to further support wellbeing. The wellbeing approach that they're centring on is around the new curriculum of Wales and is a holistic approach that works with all staff, pupils, parents and the broader community. Where do we want to be? In an ideal world, it would be lovely that we didn't have to report on bullying, but unfortunately, bullying incidents do occur and will probably continue to occur despite all the work that we undertake. However, I am pleased to say that we have having seen a peak in the data in 2017-18, that's the academic year 2017-18, in the incidents of bullying, that they have come down. Verbal and physical bullying continue to be the most prolific types of bullying, and racial bullying, although has fluctuated recently, has come down. This is more likely to be a reflection of what's been going on in the world over late. This is where, schools are ideally placed to continue their focus on teaching rights, respect and tolerance. The data sheet is attached to the report, which I'm sure or I hope you've had an opportunity to have a look at. Moving forward, we are waiting to receive updated guidance from Welsh Government on transgender. We will await the evaluation of the hate crime training and workshops. We're working to produce a report on the student conference that was held in November of last year, and we will continue to update the online wellbeing toolkit. Work will continue to be undertaken to finalise the wellbeing handbook, We're hoping to launch the RAS in the spring, summer term of this academic year. There'll be an evaluation on the Aberfan project, and we will continue to work very closely with our schools to update guidance from Welsh Government in respect of online learning. And we will also work to continue to ensure that that school staff have their wellbeing considerations looked after. Hopefully that has set the scene of the kinds of things that we've been undertaking as a local authority. We invited a couple of our schools, Cadraw Primary and Getley Philo Primary, to this meeting this afternoon. Neil Hancock, the head teacher of Cadraw, has been very supportive in the work that we've been putting together around our Wellbeing handbook. And it was when he sort of shared the case studies that I asked him whether he would be willing to do a short presentation for you. Also spoke with Sally Williams, head teacher of Getley Philo Primary, to ask whether colleagues in her school would be happy to share the work that they have done, particularly around anti-bullying. I don't know whether you'd like to ask me any questions around the report that I've put together before we go into the school presentations, or whether you'd like to leave the questions until after the schools have presented. I'll leave that up to yourselves.
We leave the questions. We leave the questions until the two heads have made their presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Neil, would you be happy to make your presentation first? Thank you.
I don't know if happy is the word, but yes, I'll go first. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll endeavour to share my screen with you shortly. I won't make it, it's quite a lot of detail in my presentation, but I'll do everything I can in order to make that as quick as we can. I just want to start by saying that I feel, can you all see the screen now, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay. That a whole school, and in fact a whole organisation approach to well-being will certainly minimise and reduce negative outcomes such as bullying. I'm going to just start with a little bit about my journey, because as a leader, and I'm sure you'll all agree that it's very often your own values, your own principles, which are reflected in your approaches within an organisation, certainly within a school. I was born in Bargoed quite a few years ago now. My father worked underground, Mum worked in the local bakery. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. So I think growing up, the family, the sense, the importance of family, the importance of belonging were really to me. And my parents instilled in me a work ethic. They had high aspirations, high expectations of me. Subsequently, I was the first member of my family to attend university. I graduated, I did a PGCE, and I've been teaching, and I still class myself as a teacher, a head teacher, but I've been teaching for 36 years, 28 of those in Merthyr, 13 of those at Cadraw, and for the past 4 years, I've been head teacher at Cadraw, and I'm very proud to hold that role. Currently, we have around about 250 children on roll. They're arranged in 10 classes, 8 mainstream, and 2 resource bases for children who have a diagnosis of ASD and a range of other complex needs. Our school is a friendly school, it's inclusive, and it's a supportive learning community. One of the highlights of my career was while reading a draft of an Estin report, which wouldn't think we'd put highlights in an Estin report in the same sentence, but it was. And it said that the head teacher's vision is one based on sound values and principles, with children at the heart of the school, and that is fundamental. That's what I believe. You know, certainly children are the first thing that I consider when making any decisions in any which way, but certainly around well-being. A few principles that we base our approaches on here at Cadraw. You know, well-being is a journey and not a destination. You know, you can't get 10 out of 10 for well-being. You can't get a GCSE in well-being. However, it's really, really important that with continuous provision and that whole sort of school approach, that we give children the capacity, the right skills and attitudes to navigate life's opportunities and indeed their challenges. And again, you know, incredibly important that is seen as a proactive thing and not reactive, which, you know, something like anti-bullying again, which is paramount and fundamental. And that well-being within an establishment, you know, whatever that is everybody's responsibility, and not perhaps those at the forefront in terms of those who are best equipped in terms of training. The culture and the ethos at Cadraw is built on those 6 pillars that you can see in front of you there, and they're all again based on the book which is central there. It's on the work of somebody called Paul Dix and his company Pivotal Education, and that book is well worth a read, you know, with your educational background or not, because it's very, very informative about how best to make changes. And, you know, the things there that I've listed, the consistent, the calm, the caring adults, everyone is expected, well, you know, more than that, to have the highest standards of personal conduct, to accept responsibility for their behaviour and encourage others to do the same. And that is the whole school community. You know, I believe that clear and concise communication is paramount. And, you know, our school rules are reflected there for you: ready, respectful, safe. Everybody within the school community is ready to learn, is respectful of everybody and everything, and takes responsibility for their own and the safety of others. First, attention to best conduct, you know, praise and reward, and you're looking out for those things that are done well, and praise and effort in particular, again, are one of those pillars. With, I don't know if the word relentless is one of the words I pinched from Paul Dix, relentless routines, but certainly routine is incredibly important. Children enjoy routine, children enjoy structure, children enjoy clear boundaries, and so routines, and particularly our children who have got a diagnosis of autism, routines for them are a fundamental part of their school day, but all children respond well to that. Positive relationships, and again, you know, all the things you come through when you're looking at positive psychology around well-being, you know, it's the relationships will become an important part of that. But equally recognizing when things do wrong, there is a need for some sort of follow-up, and that's a restorative approach, which is not based on blame, it's based on repair and putting things right. Again, you know, the vision is exactly what that should be. It should be a reflection of what the school is aiming to achieve. And I've just taken sections out of that, which says that well-being and enjoyment and resilience are at the heart of everything we do. And again, you know, that simple message about being ready to learn, respectful and responsible is an integral part of our school vision. It's about what we are aiming to achieve with all stakeholders, you know, not just the children, staff, parents, everybody is expected to buy in to that vision. And in fact, we're you know, part of creating that vision. I won't go many of these things in great detail because I heard the word short when Sarah said, and I could talk all night about many of these things. But what we've tried to do at Cadraw is build up a portfolio, if you like, a range of strategies, taking the best bits of different approaches. You know, there are others there, you know, the Thrive approach is a very successful one. And what we've done, we've cherry-picked what we feel are the best things from these and put them into a Cadraw approach to well-being. The approach is built on a tiered system. Basically, everybody gets tier 1 in terms of what we're offering there. And then as a result of identification, some may get some more targeted intervention around improving their well-being. Could be at certain times, as we said, that journey of well-being. I'm sure you've all experienced that yourself. You could wake up and feel great. By about 11 o'clock, your well-being needs something. And so, you know, but, you know, more so rather target intervention, and then that really intensive individual intervention where children, young people, staff members, you know, are it in a particularly difficult part and a particularly challenging part of their development. There are some overarching things then which would go at the bottom level at that pyramid. You know, some things that we revisit in circle time, in assemblies, and the one of those are those 5 ways to well-being: to sort of take notice, to connect, to be active, to give, and to keep learning. So that's part of the diet, if you want, for everyone. So everyone is constantly reminded of how when our well-being is at a level that we want to pick it up, that those are the 5 things that we can do in order to make ourselves feel a little bit better about ourselves. In terms of the curriculum and the learning offer, I suppose, although, you know, as I said, it's not about, you know, teaching well-being. It's about giving children the skills and the opportunities and the attitudes in order to do these things. We still use the SEAL approach. We still use the SEAL approach, which is, you know, I think it was introduced about 2000, early 2005, 2000, and it's still very, very relevant today. It's focused on those 5 areas: giving children the social skills, the empathy, the motivation, giving them that ability to be aware of their own feelings, emotions, and then hopefully to manage those. And again, you know, that is there for you. I'm sure, you know, if you want copies of this, then you've got it there. But it's the key skills around making and sustaining friendships, around standing up for their own rights and the rights of others, and then dealing with those things such as frustration, anger, and fear. We all feel those emotions, and it's very important that our young people are able to understand them and hopefully sort of self-regulate those feelings. The way it's structured, again, we don't see necessarily PSE or PSD, PSHE, whatever, as an individual standalone subject. It's something which is integral to all aspects of the school day, but we base it on particular themes which run at different times of the year, and that just gives you a feeling then, you know, things are on good to be me, getting on and falling out, you know, saying no to bullying. So they're integral parts of that SEAL program. This was introduced firstly in our Key Stage 2 learning resource base, where sometimes the children there have huge difficulties understanding their feelings. And it was something we introduced to them initially, and about how to sort of understand which zone you would put yourself. And then when you've got that understanding of that, look for the ways that you can move yourselves back into that green zone. And again, as you know, as it says there, it was initially introduced there, but certainly we then took it out to other children in the school who perhaps needed that. And we've now introduced it, particularly during the lockdown periods, to all our children and parents, in order that perhaps it's a strategy that they can use, because there will be times, obviously generally, but particularly with the recent sort of occurrences, that we will need that ability to be self-aware of our feelings and then to regulate those feelings and emotions. The next one is something, again, which all schools now in Merthyr have taken on board. It's the PERMA model, and again, it's based on research. It's based on a psychologist who developed, again, a positive approach to well-being, and he identified these areas. It's been taken up by a local educational psychologist who has put it into a model now, which we are beginning to use in order to, I use the word assess loosely, because as I said earlier, you know, it's not an assessment, but it's in order for us to take a snapshot using an online tool, which will give us an idea about children's well-being in those key areas, in the sort of positive emotions, in the engagement and motivation, the relationships, the meaning, and then achievement and accomplishment. And again, you know, that's the way we are using it currently. We use the online profiler, which gives us a well-being profile, which is a snapshot in time, but does highlight sort of strengths and difficulties for those children. And then again, we use our tier model then to perhaps arrange children into groups, set a whole class area of learning, or again, you know, zone into individuals who might come out who are particularly needy in any one of those areas. And what also PERMA also gives us then is a huge bank of resources specifically targeted at the areas then that perhaps there have been difficulties or challenges identified. And again, you know, it's that impact. It is only a snapshot, but it does give us a tool then where we can start to sort of identify where potential strengths and difficulties are for each of our children as individuals. The last one you'd be glad to hear is one, again, which is embedded pretty much, I would suggest, in more schools within Merthyr, is the ELSA model. Now, you know, an ELSA is an emotional literacy support assistant, and ELSA is a huge bank of resources, again, a website which provides huge bank of resources and information and support for people. But I love this one here, which basically sums up for me what ELSA does, what an ELSA approach does, and that is empathises, listens, supports and advises children, young people when they most need it. And again, you know, there are always children in our schools who are facing challenges, and sometimes those are longer term, sometimes they're short, and we need to know. So we've got, you know, we've only got one ELSA trained member of staff at the moment, but we've empowered that person to really share her expertise with, and particularly during the lockdown periods and subsequently the returns to school, she's done lots of training and she's provided lots of support for all our staff in order that then we can all then sort of provide some of that emotional, you know, literacy support, and, you know, hopefully generate again that whole school, that consistent approach to well-being. I've gone very, very quickly through that. I hope it's given everyone just a taste of the successful way that we approach well-being at Cadraw. And again, I don't know what you want to do next, if you want to take any questions now or wait to take questions till after Kaylee's presentation. I will stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, we'll take questions all at the same time.
Lovely.
So if we move over now to Kaylee.
Hello, everybody. I'm actually here with my colleague, Katie Jones. We're both foundation phase teachers at Gelli Vailog. So thank you for inviting us along this afternoon. And we are here this afternoon to talk about anti-bullying at Gelli Vailog. So Katie's going to share her screen and you'll be able to see our presentation.
I started sharing. Now, are you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so a whole school approach then. At Gelli Vailog, we take a whole school approach to anti-bullying. We believe that it is vitally important that we have everyone who is connected to our school on board and working with us to promote anti-bullying within our school. These include all stakeholders, whether they are based within our settings, such as teachers, other support staff, students and pupils, and also those who work with us at a distance, including parents, governors, and also community members. We provide a strong whole school anti-bullying policy, which reflects our values and principles as a school community. The anti-bullying policy, along with all our other policies, are published on our school website for easy access. Anti-bullying is embedded within a variety of our other policies, such as safe internet use, positive behaviour, and also safeguarding too. These policies are regularly monitored and reviewed and amended if and when the need arises. We strongly encourage and promote school staff, pupils and their parents to be active in our whole school approach to anti-bullying.
At Gelli Vailog, we committed to providing a caring, friendly and safe environment for our members of our community, pupils and staff alike. Our adults serve as positive role models, demonstrating how to treat others well by using appropriate language when discussing all kinds of differences. Offensive or discriminatory language is challenged within our school to prevent an environment forming where bullying is more likely to happen. We have a culture which all pupils are included and valued, and we advocate pupil and parent voice in all aspects of our school life. We are a telling school where we encourage our learners to openly talk about their concerns, including bullying. Through our cross-curricular topics and participation through national days of action such as Anti-Bullying Week and Give Racism the Red Card, our children have the opportunity to acknowledge that discrimination exists in the wider society and that it can lead to discriminatory bullying in school. Coming up next week is Internet Safety Week, which is even more so important with our children currently learning from home. We will take this opportunity to raise awareness of what cyberbullying is and how to deal with it. We send out a strong message that difference is actively celebrated and welcome across the school. We have recently adopted the principles of a values-based school to create a harmonious learning environment by underpinning school life and the curriculum with positive human values. A whole school approach brings us closer as a community as we collectively focus on a new value each month.
The aim of our head teacher, senior leaders, teachers and support staff is quality teaching to ensure the needs of all our learners in school are met. This is observed and monitored by regular classroom observations, learning walks, informal drop-ins, book looks by senior leadership team, and planning being openly shared within our school on our school drive. We aspire to provide a broad and balanced curriculum for our learners through a range of rich and engaging activities. Our school's vision is to excel, which is to provide children with excellent, exciting, creative, engaging learning, which we hope will prepare our children for life in an ever-changing world. We provide whole school events and celebrations where we address events including Anti-Bullying Week and Show Racism the Red Card, and encourage children to celebrate, appreciate and understand differences within the human race. As a school, we work closely with the wider community, including the church, where we support a variety of charities, including Operation Christmas with a shoebox appeal, Children in Need, Comic Relief, and also by supporting our local food bank too. We hope by doing so, children are learning to become more self-aware and as a result, eager to support people in need in the future. And we also want them to become caring and appreciative of others. The mental health and well-being of our children is important to us at Gelli Vailog, and we ensure that we bring the children together to celebrate and shine light on the subject. Just last week, we celebrated Children's Mental Health Week with the theme Express Yourself. We carried out a variety of activities across the classes, including a virtual Dress to Express day on Friday, plus other activities that went on throughout the week, including online story circle time and stories also. On entry to the new academic year in September, we have a whole school curriculum focus from nursery to year 6 titled Incredible Me. We concentrate on the individuality of the children and provide many learning opportunities outdoors through activities that will encourage friendships, acceptance and tolerance in our children. We provide relationships education to our children, which focuses on themes including positive relationships, friendships, cyberbullying, respect, and online safety too. We are fortunate enough to have 2 ELSA trained staff within our school, delivering both one-to-one sessions and also group sessions to children in need of emotional support and guidance. As a school, we ensure children's achievements are celebrated. We do this in a variety of ways, including show and tell sessions, celebration assemblies, certificates and reward systems, celebratory displays celebrating academic and sporting achievements, sharing achievements with the wider community on Twitter and also on our school website.
Excuse me. Training and staff development at Gelli Vailog. We have a shared understanding of what bullying is and what it isn't, which is reinforced to parents regularly, particularly on the run-up to Anti-Bullying Week. This message is also reiterated in class throughout the school to ensure children have a shared understanding that bullying will not be tolerated. As previously mentioned, we have become values-based school. All members of staff, including our canteen and cleaning staff, were invited to take part in the training and are expected to demonstrate each core value in their day-to-day practice. We also hold regular safeguarding training, which is whole school. And one of our strong points in our school is that we have a compassionate, caring and understanding wellbeing team with a good range of knowledge of problems including ACEs, pupil, mental health and wellbeing. Our wellbeing team would then be on hand for their involvement should they be required if a bullying investigation was opened.
Prevention strategies. We strongly believe in Getty Dialogue that prevention is better than cure, and therefore we have put strategies in place to help prevent the occurrence of bullying. The strategies that we have put in place to help prevent bullying are solution circles among staff to support, educate and advise each other in situations, educating the wider community on relevant issues, parent workshops where we invite parents into school to learn more about specific topics, class discussions and circle time, which gives the children opportunities then to share, discuss, question and reflect. We have focus weeks such as Anti-Bullying Week and Children's Mental Health Week. We work closely with parents, and sometimes if they are needed, then we'll have homeschool books, or which we've had recently now, instead of sending books back and forth to school, we've been making phone calls to keep that contact with parents. We have check-ins with both parents and children. This was prior to COVID, this was done within school, and parents were invited into school to have meetings with our family liaison officer. Now more so is done over the telephone. We also then have mentors and buddies for children who would benefit from this. So for example, we could possibly have an older child who would need to build confidence and self-esteem supporting another child. Or if we had a younger pupil that required maybe some support in the playground, if they were moving up to the Key Stage 2 playground, then we would put the buddy scheme then in place for those children.
Our anti-bullying policy states there are no innocent bystanders. Everyone has a role to play in preventing bullying. It clearly describes the role of all stakeholders in the event that a bullying claim is made, and as a tell in school, anyone who knows that bullying is happening is expected to report it to the staff. In the event of a bullying disclosure, we follow the list of actions. So the bullying incident is reported, staff members take all bullying claims seriously, and reassurance is given to the source of information that they have done the right thing. We would then use My Concern to log concerns. So the type of concerns we would log are initial parent concerns, any playground or classroom incidents. Following from that, then we would agree action. So this could be a low-key chat with the children involved, buddy support, involvement with a school nurse. The way forward would be added to My Concern, and our head and family support officer would return regularly to check if issues are resolved or if there was a need to escalate the response. This list of actions, then we would give opportunity for the children to be empowered, and they would have support to resolve conflict and understand their role in the issue. Children would be given time to work it out and establish an agreement between those involved, if that's necessary, and support would be given individually or together. Should children require further support, we have a successful ELSA programme available. We can signpost parents and children to support groups, and if necessary, a referral to exchange counselling, and the educational psychologist can be made. So a really important role in all of this is our family support officer. I think she's the person who would drive a lot of this forward.
A close working partnership between our parents and school is important. We want both parents and pupils to be actively involved in the decisions that we make within our school. We want them to feel listened to, we want them to feel valued, and we want them to influence the strategies and approaches to prevent bullying. Parent and pupil voice is evident at our school through school council, playground and reading buddies, playground leaders in Key Stage 2 and young leaders in the foundation phase, the PASS survey, which is pupils' attitudes towards self and school, pupil and parent surveys, which cover a range of subjects and areas, and also PERMA, which has previously been mentioned by Neil from Cwdraw. And thank you very much for listening. We hope that was okay for you.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much, both. Before I ask members of the committee whether they've got questions or observations to make, can I first of all thank Kaylee and Katie for such, and not to forget Neil, for such informative presentations. Tremendous. We picked up a lot from that, you know, wasn't in Sarah's report, only because obviously you were down at the grassroots level and basically know what we are looking for within the education department in Merthyr. So once again, I'd like to thank the three of you for excellent presentations. That's not to forget Sarah, who opened up by giving the introduction and the full report then on the well-being anti-bullying. So with that in mind, I now open it up to questions from members on what you've heard over the last hour or so. Any questions?
Chair, Councillor Yago.
Yes, carry on, Sherelle.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, Sarah, and the teachers for the presentations. Really useful information there. My first question is on item 5.10 in relation to the welcome assessments in school. My question would be for the primary schools, are these proven successful in early identification and supporting poor literacy? And what outcomes are coming out of this welcome assessment process at the moment? That's my first one.
Are you happy for me to respond, Chair? Yes, just for your information, Sherelle, welcome has only just been started in the primary schools. However, it has been a very effective tool that's been used in early years over quite a number of years. And to ensure that we've got that continuum of assessment and routine, we have now provided it for the primary schools. Schools have recently baselined or assessed, I should say, their pupils in the early years. There's a lot of echo here, so I apologize. I hope you can hear me. Apologies for that. To get that baseline assessment in place, and then it's up to schools to identify whether they would continue to assess all pupils or whether they would just continue to assess those of targeted need. But one of the key points that reason why I brought this into the report, and I think I mentioned earlier, is that poor literacy skills can quite often be a frustrating situation for a young person and can impact upon their behaviour. So not only are we looking to support the RAS strategy insofar as raising standards and raising aspirations, but also to improve the well-being for young people, to make them more, to improve their social skills.
Fab, thanks for that, Sarah. So it hasn't been rolled out yet across all primary schools, is that what you're saying?
It has, insofar as all schools have done their initial assessment, but obviously it's early days. They've only just done that now. And I can see Neil's raised his hand, so I'll pass to Neil in just a minute. But obviously it's in place there now for schools to utilise as they see fit.
Okay.
Yeah, we began using it last year, but not as formally as we are now, because now we've got the ability to upload our data and track our pupils more effectively. But certainly what we were able to do with it last year is identify, very early on in children's development. And again, it uses quite a simplistic version in some ways, a RAG rating scheme where we can look for children who need that individual support or that more targeted group support. And certainly, in that journey towards literacy, to be able to speak, listen and understand is fundamental in terms of then developing reading skills and subsequently writing skills. And we are really on that course to develop literacy, and Welcome gives us a fantastic start in that process. And, it can be used subsequently throughout the school. But I think at those early years, to get those early interventions in place, to give our children the opportunities to be able to communicate. And again, coming back to Sarah's point, it is very often we see that with our children with autism in particular, that lack of ability to communicate their thoughts, feelings, ideas is quite often a trigger to negative behaviors. And you could mirror that across everyone. So yeah, I'm sure Welcome will be a really useful tool in raising aspiration, raising standards, and in terms of raising children's well-being. The better they feel about themselves, the better that everything.
Thank you for that. My next question was around PERMA on item 5.16, but thank you, Neil. Your presentation covered all my questions really about, is there a framework, is there a tool, how is it used? But you covered that perfectly in your presentation, so thank you for that. In terms of the bullying strategies, what I wanted to ask is, we've got the anti-bullying strategy guidance that's available. Within there's an appendix to model the bullying incident report forms. I think it's appendix 4. So are those forms now being adopted through all schools in Merthyr Tydfil?
Yes, I can answer that question. Yes, it's a statutory guidance, and we use that incident report form. Schools are asked to complete that and send that in to us on a termly basis, upon which we're able to gather the data. But I'd also like to make it very clear that actually prior to this guidance being reviewed, we've had a reporting mechanism in place, certainly since I've been in post for the last 10 years, using the recommended exemplar document from Welsh Government. And that has been tweaked over the years as things have come out. There's more emphasis these days on gender and sexuality. There's also been an inclusion of cyberbullying over the years as things have changed. But that reporting tool is schools have that, and that is sent in to us on a termly basis.
Excellent, that's good to know. Thanks, Sarah. And then on Appendix 1, you've got the bullying incidents, which is really useful because it breaks down the number of incidents across the academic year. What concerned me though was 2017-18 and then again in 18-19, there were significant numbers of bullying incidents where the motivation behind the bullying was not known on the reporting mechanism. 41 in 17-18 and 33 in 18-19. Obviously, the figures this year are skewed because they haven't been in school since March. But those dramatic increases on of bullying incidents where the motivation, we didn't get to the bottom of the reasons why those children were bullied, is quite concerning for me. And I don't know if you can share any light on, what comes under that not known category.
Yes, thank you. Those that have come up as not known, we have then followed up with the school to sort of get some further detail, because in our sort of spreadsheet or database that we hold, we have further commentary with regards to how they were finally resolved. So this data was then put together, but subsequently then we would have followed up with the school to actually have a better understanding of what the incident was and to confirm what the motivation was. And to ensure that actually that had been followed up either with the child, the family, etc. So although it looks as if not known, which is what the first incident information that we would have received, we would then follow it up with the individual schools.
And would there be any way that we could see like a breakdown of the yearly incidence of bullying per school cluster example, to see if there's any common trends, if there's, you know, a high percentage in one area against another? I just think from members' perspective, and our lay members brought this up in our pre-meeting, maybe that's something that we could consider moving forward.
We do hold that data because obviously that comes to us, and we've got the data saying how many incidents there were by school. Having had a look at it though, there haven't been any, because we have obviously looked at that for trends, there haven't been any sort of trends insofar as one particular school has had all the racial incidents and one particular school has had all the incidents in relation to gender. But I can certainly share the data that we have by school, should you wish to see that.
Fab, that's excellent. And just one final point on the anti-bullying guidance. It said it was last updated in July 2020, which is great. However, there's about 3 or 4 pages at the end with lots of different links with, you know, very useful information, links to websites, etc. But lots of them are out of date, a couple of years out of date. So I don't know whether that was just an omission when the strategy guidance was updated, but maybe somebody could just go back and refresh the links to make sure they are relevant and they do work.
Sorry, are you referring to our guidance?
Yes, on the local authorities website. I think you updated it last in July 2020.
Yes, we did, yes. They had all been checked. They were all live when we updated the guidance, but sometimes you find that some of these companies might not be in existence. They don't last as long as some of, like, you know, we've talked about Show Racism the Red Card and Mike Bullies Out. Those are groups that we work with on a regular basis. Then another group will start and we'll put the information in, and they might not stand the test of time. So we are currently updating our website, actually. So that is something we can have a look at to make sure that they could be removed, those that maybe haven't, like I said, stood the test of time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. Neil, I just got one question for you with regards to your presentation. I love the zones of regulation. I thought that was a really good way to, you know, for young people to understand what's going on with them and to put words to what they feel in. So that was really, really good. And I was really interested in your tier approach to wellbeing as well. Your tier 3 was your high level needs children. And I was just curious, really, on an average week, how many tier 3 children would you be dealing with within your school in terms of well-being?
Again, you know, well-being, as I said there, you know, it's very, there's spikes, there's dips, there's troughs. But currently, you know, those children there, outside of our base classes, who get quite a lot of intensive one-to-one support on a regular basis. Of a school of 250, we might have 5-6 children who are receiving one-to-one ELSA support at any one time, and that would be, you know, but so that would be the average situation then.
Fab, thank you.
I don't know if you'd see that being reflected, Sarah, Sue. I think that would be a, you know, dependent on.
No, I agree. Yes, I mean the numbers, in all fairness, with the targeted support have pleasing to say have been relatively minimal, and I think the key messages that came across from both schools, it is, if this is a whole school approach, then it permeates through the whole curriculum and is supported by school staff, all stakeholders, parents, the wider community, then those sort of key principles of rights, respect and tolerance are instilled from the very beginning. Then the idea is actually that the fewer pupils will need that intensive targeted support at tier 3 or however schools phrase it, you know, depending upon their particular systems.
And again, it's about being proactive rather than reactive, isn't it? And hopefully, you know, setting up those groups and hopefully at the heart of everything, it's about empowering those children.
Thank you. One final question from me. We talked about where we want to go in terms of timelines, really, Sarah. Oh.
I missed the question, Cheryl. I couldn't hear you, sorry.
Sorry. Item 7, you mentioned about the Wellbeing Handbook, and I just wanted to know in terms of timelines, when is it likely that this would be finalised? and how is the handbook going to be shared with pupils? Is it electronic, or is it a paper format? I just wanted to know in terms of how it's delivered.
The handbook, the plan is to have that handbook finished this academic year. And as I mentioned, there's a task and finish group of which Neil is a member, was set up at the start of this academic year. And we've been working our way through it section by section and updating it to ensure that we've got the most up-to-date and relevant information in there. It is a paper copy, but we also have an online wellbeing toolkit, which is based in the hub platform that schools can access. And it'll also be linked there so that we can update it on a regular basis to ensure that schools have got the most up-to-date information. As I'm sure you've from one thing you've probably all learned this afternoon, there's an absolute plethora of information out there, a plethora of strategies and approaches, and obviously it depends upon individual schools, individual needs as to which one suits their school best. And, you know, with the best tool in the world, and nobody could read through them all. So if we've got them all in one place and we're able to update it from our end, then it, you know, it saves us having to sort of bombard schools with information, and they can access them behind I think with the areas we've devised the toolkit in is around staff wellbeing, curriculum wellbeing, pupil wellbeing, etc., and the handbook will sit there. So it will be paper based, but it'll also be electronic so that we can make sure that it doesn't become obsolete as soon as it's written.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Any comments?
Harvey, would you mind if I just thanked everybody for their presentations, please?
Not at all. The floor is yours.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Really interesting, really enjoyable. Sarah obviously keeps me up to date on everything, in fairness, as Sue does. But really thanks, and very grateful to the schools as well for giving us that insight. And I'm sure colleagues found it very useful and beneficial as well, you know, and sometimes it really is important to bring schools into scrutiny. Albeit I think unnecessarily, some of our schools get a little bit nervous, and you shouldn't. You know, it is really good for sharing good practice and for all of us really to understand what's happening in the schools, and how I'm sure Harvey and the Scrutiny and myself as cabinet member and leader as well can support you in the future. So just wanted to give my thanks, guys. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. And apologies, Harvey, I was slightly late. I do apologise.
Yeah, it's okay. So it just remains for me to thank each and every one of the presenters once more. Excellent presentations. I think we learned a lot from it. And I look forward to basically the anniversary of the introduction, or beyond the anniversary now because of the lockdown, so that we can see, hopefully, that we are making steady progress with getting to grips with this vitally important topic of bullying within our schools. So once again, on behalf of the committee, I would like to thank all the presenters for what they have produced here this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Now, if the presenters now want to leave the meeting, we are going to go on to item number 3 on the agenda now, or 4 on the agenda. I'm sure that won't be of significant interest to you this afternoon. So it's entirely up to you whether you stop. It's agenda item number 4.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank
With agenda item number 4, we go on to Sue's report, corporate self-evaluation, inspection area number 3. So over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Chair. This would normally be the last key question that we would bring you as part of our sort of self-evaluation process. However, because of the ongoing issues with our data collection, we haven't quite finalised what information we can bring you as part of key question 1. So key question 1 will be coming to you either in the next meeting or the following meeting, when we actually look at what performance data we can present to you. So this is our sort of leadership and management self-evaluation. Members would be aware that whilst we continue the corporate self-evaluation, we also have to be mindful of the requirements of the ESTIN framework. So this is why included in this self-evaluation is our self-evaluation of safeguarding. You won't see that in other scrutinies, although obviously in social services scrutiny they will have to present the safeguarding report, the overall safeguarding report. But we do have a duty to actually report on safeguarding as part of the ESTIN framework. So that is why this includes the safeguarding report. So if we've got the overarching last year, members who were on the committee last year will remember that leadership and management was judged as adequate. It remains as adequate because whilst we acknowledge that there have been improvements in our leadership and management this year, it's still too soon to actually judge the impact of those changes and also the impact on outcomes, particularly where we are sitting with the current data at the moment. We are saying that people management is good. You've heard previously about how the council has introduced focus on performance. The learning department has had performance management as a robust process for a number of years, and that continues to be good. But what we have introduced for the first time this year, and it is a pilot, is the actual 360 approach, where myself and the team leaders on my heads of service at that level were actually asked to undertake an anonymous 360 on myself. All the team leaders did, all the heads of service did one on myself, and I did one on them, and then the teams did one. It does feed into our focus on our performance. It also feeds into my focus on my performance when I discussed that with Ellis. But this is very new. It's the first time we've actually done the 360. And it's the first time we'll be having those conversations on what that means. But it was an anonymous process, and it's the comments as much as anything. We haven't put any of the comments in the report, but the comments on strengths and areas for development are as important as those final aggregated scores that you actually see on the report. So if we actually go through to where we want to be, we obviously want leadership and management to be at least good. We want that for the 3 key areas. We want them to be at least good. But we need to sort of actually look at the address and the priorities for improvement. One of the key things that we are working on, as you know, is launching the RAS strategy and get that monitoring progress throughout 2021. There was a slight error in what Sarah said in the spring-summer launch. We are not looking to launch it until formally until the autumn term now, because of the current situation with schools. That's not to say that we're not working on it and we're not working on the commitments. And as Lisa will know, and Harvey will know, we've got an education partnership panel which meets at least termly, and we do report back on what we're actually doing against the RAS strategy. But we're not doing that formal launch until, I am hoping that schools might be back to some sort of normality in September, so we can really have a positive launch. As part of that, we've got some really good practice in Merthyr, in their schools, and I hope you saw that by the 2 schools that presented this evening. But they're really shy at actually shouting it from the rooftops. So I think we really need to get out that good, positive message about what is going on in our schools, and that's what part of the RAS launch would be about. We have what we call team around the school meetings, which includes the consortium, which includes my officers, when we actually look at each school in detail. But we need to be more robust on that, and we need to have that open and frank discussion about what each of us are doing and understanding everybody's role. We need to look at how we as a learning department agree our priorities. We do our self-evaluation, as you can see, there are 11 priorities. We're only a small department. We actually need to be quite robust and be really focused on what our priorities are moving forward in a cohesive and sustainable way. The RT&I plan, the Recovery, Transformation and Improvement Plan, will go a long way to help us with that, as will the priorities in the RAS. Our usual one about Capital 1 comes in because we do need that to be able to sort of hold it, to have that data to move it to account. 7.6 is an interesting one. It is one that we need to talk to you in some depth about when we come to key question 1, because it says about revising the overall strategy on a page, the SOAP, because the key performance indicators that are in that SOAP at the moment are not what we can report on. So we need to consider what we can report on and how you can hold Lisa to account and myself to account on how we can how we're actually delivering against that. But that's going to need some careful consideration. Again, widen the scope of 360, so we're including not just team managers, but underneath that, we've got a key piece of work to do with the secondary school to have a look at our specialist provision for those children with additional learning needs, and we're moving forward on that next half term and into the summer term. And then I'm very keen to sort of get that head teachers forum. We've got a budget forum, a school forum, as you know, which looks at budget, but what we found very successful over the last couple of years, the staff wellbeing strategy was done as a task and finish group with head teachers. There was a task and finish group looking at the RAS originally, looking at those priorities. Sarah's got a task and finish group looking at the wellbeing handbook at the moment. It's engaging head teachers in our strategic thinking moving forward. So if they're on board, one of the reasons is they're current, they're relevant, they're doing it at the moment, as I think one of you said in your questions, but is to actually ensure that they can support us identifying those priorities moving forward. You've then got, and then in the appendix, you've got the actual detail of our self-evaluation. So I won't go through that, but open it up to questions. Brent.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. Well, I'll start off with a little comment and then I'll lead into a question, if that's okay. With regards to this, I'm always, I don't know, in my day job, I do a lot with staff surveys, self-evaluation and all that sort of engagement and all this sort of stuff with staff and getting feedback of where we actually are and how we're performing. So I'm always a little bit skeptical on the results of these sort of things, because I feel that if you like somebody, you'll tend to give them a higher score. And if we don't like somebody, you'll tend to not. I think that's human nature. So with regards to this, when we were in the pre-meeting, I asked a question in connection with the scores ranging from 1 to 6, etc. And do these scores correlate to where we are as an authority with education performance? So I'm not going to go into that, because obviously this is more down to where we are as an authority, I suppose. But if I go back to where you said about leadership, you've obviously given yourself an adequate in leadership. Mm-hmm. But when I'm looking at the figures, we've got an aggregated score of 5 across the piece. So if we score him from 1 to 6, I don't quite see how 5 comes across as adequate. For me, perhaps you'd be able to explain a little bit more about the figures 1 to 6, but when I look at 5, I would be putting that in towards the good to excellent and 3 to 4 in the adequate. So I don't quite understand how much about it. You can explain that for me, please.
I will try.
Thank you.
The 360, as I said, was new for us this year. I think some of the other departments some of the other service areas had done it last year. So we did it as separate to our actual self-evaluation. So this is what we are thinking of. We all had to do our own, and then others had to do it on us. So it's actually thinking of our own leadership style. So it is actually feels quite a separate entity to the self-evaluation process at the moment. And I agree that it probably shouldn't be. So one of the things, it's a learning curve for us as well, Brent. One of the things moving forward, if we are saying that our leadership style is 5, which you would say comes into the good, why isn't that being mirrored in how we are delivering the leadership and management? So where is that correlation? And at the moment, I don't think there is a direct correlation at the moment. That's a fault in our system and in our self-evaluation. So we need to consider now, we've tried it this year, tried it with my heads of service, tried it with myself, right? So we need to think, so it's a conversation to have with my heads of service all right, we say self-evaluation wise we're adequate, and yet we're scoring ourselves quite high here. So what's the correlation? So it's a conversation perhaps to pick up in those one-to-one sessions when we have our focus on the performance. That's not to decry anybody's score, and not to sort of say, well, actually, you've scored yourself too highly or whatever. But actually, how is this high? If we've got high, if we're saying we're high, why are we still overall in our leadership management adequate? So it's a conversation to actually jostle for position. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
To see where we're coming from. It is very new, and Safe will say I was quite sceptical about it. I've done the 360s before in various iterations. They've got to be worth it for me. They shouldn't just be a case of doing it for the sake of a tick in the box. It's how we work with those and make sure that that impacts on our outcomes. So if it doesn't impact on our outcomes, it's a waste of time doing it.
Lovely, thank you, Sue. Thanks, Harvey.
Any other questions? Any observations?
Sorry, Harvey.
All right.
So in terms of the 360, did you say that head teachers were involved in this, or was it just your like senior leadership team?
It was myself, Chris, Anthony, Sarah, Jill Watkins, who's ALN, and Gary Winston. So the ones that I directly line manage, and then their teams underneath them.
Right. Okay. And in the report then, in terms of what we want to do next, it does make a reference to to widen the scope of the 360 appraisal scheme. So would you consider the head teachers then as key partners and stakeholders moving forward as part of that whole leadership self-evaluation process, or not?
Are you thinking about doing that on us?
For the head teachers to do that on you as an education leadership team? Which I say nervously because I know what 360 evaluations bring up. But I'm just trying to be the advocate between what Councillor Carter is saying, the difference between what's on the ground and the perception within the senior management team. If you tested the model of the 360 evaluation with the schools, the head teachers as the leaders, how would that come out? Perhaps it'd be interesting.
No, I think one of the things, when we've got that head teachers forum, whether we use that evaluation, because that's very personal on us as leaders, and for me, and Safe, I'm not saying anything that I haven't said to say. I don't see how it fits into my leadership and management self-evaluation from an Estin point of view. I would just say, I think in my Estin point of view, that we carry out 360s and they're used as part of the focus on the performance. I wouldn't necessarily share all this, but we need to consider how we get evaluation from our head teachers. Yeah. Prior to COVID, we'd started, as Chris will know, we'd started having the head teachers in as part of our learning away days. But, when they're in the room, it's like different than on Teams. It doesn't work. Really struggled with self-evaluation this year for that aspect. Chris, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just to add, I think really is that, the involvement of teachers has been really helpful, the head teachers in the learning away days, so that they've got a contribution into the strategic direction and can challenge the wider learning department as well as the strategic leads on the direction of travel. But I think it is the difficulty of taking a system that is meant to be a personal review of an individual and trying to apply it as a evaluation across a whole system. You've got a dichotomy there between two different approaches, which is always going to cause some, it's never going to tally up perfectly in that respect, because it's meant to be about an individual and meant to be, the 360s are about an individual and about how an individual performs within their role and how you need to develop those individuals and the different skill sets that they need to improve over a period of time, as opposed to evaluating an entire service as to its effectiveness.
We need a different evaluation tool to do that. Then possibly would feed in, Councillor Carter, to our overall judgments, which we would hope would be more aligned to our overall judgments.
Well, considering that, then I would agree that they're not aligned at the moment, and I think that they're uniquely two separate, completely separate things. And I agree with Councillor Carter that because they were in the report, it made that challenge to say, well, you know, they weren't doing really well, but they're adequate. So yeah, I would kind of agree that, you know, what Chris said in terms of it's around that personal development and, you know, part of the appraisal process, a part of the leadership, and to you know, improve the services, but not for the wider education service. Okay, fab. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Any other questions or observations?
Yes, Harvey, can I just come back in quickly? I hope now, Sue, that the leader won't be introducing any sort of self-evaluation for the 33 councillors in the authority, mind.
Oh, I think it'd be wonderful.
Just don't be giving her any ideas now, please.
Chair, if I may add to that, Councillor Carter now is top of my list. No, I'm only joking. But Brett, you made some very valid points. If I may just add to that, to what Sue and Chris has said, and you as well, Sherelle, you made some very valid points. And it is something, you know, that we do need to consider. But no, I don't think I'll be carrying out any other self-evaluations, Councillor Carter. But thank you for that.
Okay.
Councillor Isaac.
So
yeah, can I just say, in work with ourselves, we often get a questionnaire on how we think management are performing. Is there something you think you could bring in to ask the heads on the? It's not an evaluation; it's just a questionnaire. It gives you the feeling of people on the ground.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be our next step forward when we actually move forward. What you will see in the next scrutiny meeting is the letter that we actually had from Eston in January, because you've asked in the next scrutiny meeting for an update on, or it's the next scrutiny meeting or the meeting after, I can't remember, on an update of where we are in COVID for our response to the pandemic. Now, we had a letter that was sent to Ellis, and you will receive that. So as part of that, the head teachers were asked how we, you know, were asked questions about how the local authorities. So you've got some sort of anecdotal feedback from how we manage the pandemic process. So I think we need to sort of build on that next year and actually get some sort of formal evaluation in as part of this key question 3, because it is all about, we can make judgments, can't we? But if it's a true evaluation, you've got to look outside and ask people to sort of evaluate your performance as well.
I agree. Yeah, and can I just say to Lisa that if we, the councillors, are having an evaluation, can we run it on a strictly come dancing basis? And I'd probably give myself a 10.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll have to think up a funny quip, you know, a 10 from Len, but Councillor Isaac, I'm sure we can arrange something like that. I'm meeting with your leader and your deputy leader shortly, so I shall put it to them as well, so no problem.
okay, are there any?
Chair, sorry, can I just come back in? Thank you. Sorry, Sue, I finished our conversation, but in terms of the 360 evaluation, I didn't want to be dismissive of it, and obviously your team has scored significantly high, and I just think that needs to be recognised for you as the leader of the team, and for the senior management team as well, because you know you have got some 6s in there as well. I'm not doing a strictly come dancing sounds for these, right? But yeah, you have got 6s, and all the rest's are 5s. So I think what that does do is demonstrate the confidence within your teams. You know, on your vision forward, your integrity and how you promote the service and how you're trying to drive these services and standards up in education. So I just think that needs to be recognised. And finally, in terms of the report of where we are and where we want to be, I agree with the recommendation that for the progress we are adequate and we need to move to the good section. So I just wanted that noted. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or observations? If not, I'll take you back to the beginning. The report itself focused on key question 3, which was leadership and management. That's the important thing to remember all the way through this report. And basically, what came out of it at the end, and I totally agree with adequate being the level by which we set ourselves at this point in time. All the evidence is there for you to make your own minds up, but mine was made up when I read through the report. And if you then went to paragraph 6 of the report, where we want to be, the aim is for leadership and management to be at least good. So there we are at adequate, and with a little bit of a push in the next period, I'm sure that we can hit that level of being at least good. So I'm hoping members will agree with that adequate is fair and reasonable based on the evidence that's contained within Sue's report. And where we want to be is, as she says, we want to be good. She don't want to sit back and think adequate is all right. She wants us to be in the good category. Okay? Do we agree with those sentiments? Okay.
Agree.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So it remains for me now to thank you all for being such a good committee this afternoon. I think we've done very well to finish by dead on 17:30. And I hope you've enjoyed the presentations from the head teachers and Sarah. I hope you've enjoyed then this report here. For those of you who haven't read it, I'm suggesting that you do read it because it is very, very informative. And what impressed me was, and I'll finish at this, it links into the RAS strategy, which we're all switched on to, hopefully. The RAS strategy is going to play a major part in reports of this type from year on in. So with that, I thank you all for attending and declare the meeting closed.
Have we missed anything out?
I beg your pardon?
Have we missed an item out on the agenda? Sorry.
Item 6, Chair,
Yes,
the
I'm
forward
glad you
work
mentioned
programme.
that. I was kidding myself, but we had finished there.
Item 5, Chair.
We're on to the forward work programme, which is item 5. There are no changes at this point in time to the forward work programme. If members have got any changes in their mind, if they bring them to my attention or Saeed's attention, we will consider putting them into the next programme. But looking at the next month's programme, I think we're going to be struggling to put anything of significance into that programme because of the items already on there. So that's the forward work programme. Scrutiny referrals.
Sorry, Chair.
We haven't received this month any scrutiny referrals. we've got one there from last month, which I'm sitting on at this point in time, only because the schools are still in lockdown, and in order for us to move forward with this particular item, we've got to have the schools up and running. So I'm sitting on that until the schools go back. Reflection and evaluation of the meeting. Well, I always leave my update open to members to say what they thought about the meeting, and we leave it at that then.
Chair, can I come in, please? Chair?
Yeah?
Yeah. In terms of the work programme, we had a report on the health and early years agenda that was due back in November, but that was cancelled due to mass testing. I'm just wondering when we're going to get that back into the work programme, because, you know, obviously with COVID now, we've got a whole cohort of babies, you know, who were born February, March last year, who've gone a whole year under the COVID restrictions. And I know many families have, you know, faced severe isolation. Many children haven't even met with other children of the same age. So I just think it'd be really interesting to see where we're at with the role of early years and health, particularly in these challenging times.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep that in mind now that you've brought it up, Sherelle. But I again refer you back to the two items that we've got on the agenda for the 15th of March. And what I'm afraid of is to put anything of significance into that agenda is going to be a struggle. But we look at it, and it could be that we will try and sort it in. So now that you mentioned it, at least it's been brought to our attention for us to consider for the work programme for next month. If not next month, the month after.
So, yeah, I don't mind if it's delayed, but I just don't want to lose it. I think it's an important agenda item that we all need to be aware of.
Yeah, just to come in there, that report you're referring to, Sherelle, is it the report on the role of health in early years? Because that report was actually, as you quite rightly mentioned, was deferred from 30th of November, but that was actually reported to the committee on the 11th of January. I don't think you were present for that last committee, but
don't say I missed it.
Yeah, it was. That report was actually presented to the committee.
Oh, I did.
January.
I was in child protection conference all day.
Yeah,
I did.
So that report has actually already come to committee on 11th January.
Okay, I'll have to dig out the report and read it. Okay, no worries. My fault. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So there's no other business. So I now officially declare the meeting closed.
Thanks, Harvey. Good night.
Thanks, Harvey.
Ta-ra.
Ciao all.